Hi y'all, welcome back to the garden. We're gonna take a walk around the garden. It's, what's today? The 23rd, I think. My days are running together. And see what is going on. There's a lot of things that I've done kind of behind the scenes that I haven't showed you yet, parts of the garden, but I'm also still very much behind. I was trying to accomplish a lot this spring, and I think at the rate that I'm able to go, I probably won't be finished until the end of June on a lot of projects. The tractor needed some service, and so I had to take it in a week and a half ago, which means I haven't really been able to do any mulch situations for any of the garden beds, which means I've been facing weeds, still facing weeds in this front flower bed from the things that kind of were in the mulch that I received, the triple shredded mulch, and so I've been pulling those as I've been planting areas. But otherwise, things are still looking pretty good. There's still a lot to do. This past week, it has been hotter than usual in May, and we've gotten up to almost 90 degrees, and so my focus was putting in drip irrigation. Next week, we're supposed to cool down a little bit, so I'm going to start planting again probably next week, but I just had to keep things basically watered the past week and keep them happy. So I'll turn the camera around and we'll show you some things that are blooming, starting to bloom, and then we'll go over some projects that I have that I've done and some things that are outstanding that I'll be tackling over the next week. So let's get started. So this area near the front door, I was mostly waiting to plant up until I got the fountain installed, which is going to go here-ish. It is going to cover this entire space round, so it's going to be pretty close. I'm going to set it up, and I think it'll look really good in this spot. If it doesn't and I don't like it, I may move it somewhere else. That's one reason I want to get some things, the fountain in. Of course, that project's going to take a little bit of time. I need to level this space. It was already pretty level because there was gravel here, so I really just need to rake back the mulch, see what kind of additional leveling I need to do with the soil, and then put the basin on and stack from there. And then plant around it with annuals and put drip in this space. There's already drip to all the existing things that are here, so they're happy. The boxwoods are looking much nicer. There's still a few dead spots here and there, but you can see how much better and fuller these are looking now that they've had a little bit more growth on them. I want to show you this hydrangea that I planted several years ago. I think it's been 2 years. At the last house, and it's one of the things I brought with me because it's a new variety introduced by Plant Nouveau, who I met at Cultivate the past couple years. But this is a hydrangea called Snow Sickle. It is an improved version of, you may be familiar with like Snowflake. It's an oak leaf hydrangea. It's already put almost, you know, a good amount of buds on here with lots of florets. These will continue to elongate, and it has really gorgeous fall color, but I'm so impressed with how much growth this has put on it this year, being in this location. It's obviously on drip irrigation, so it's getting lots of water daily in this bed. This bed, I won't have drip from like the irrigation system that I'm installing. It'll just come off this hose here with my beehive system that I've loved so much over the past several years. So it's getting regular water and seems to be really happy. So I'm excited about this hydrangea. It's supposed to be improved in that it doesn't get quite as big, but if it was to cover this wall, it would be absolutely gorgeous. I love those blooms. The alliums can be cut back probably. I'm just leaving them because they're kind of cute. At this point, but the foliage is all dead and I haven't decided what I'm going to tuck back here yet. These roses are blooming and looking much better since I was able to turn the drip irrigation on over here and get that going. And you can probably tell I am really excited because the Supertunia Vista Bubblegum petunias that I planted have already doubled in size. They've been planted for like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks at this point. They were some of the first things I planted, but on both sides of the sidewalk, they're really improving. And I came through this week, and that's one of the things I focused on, was getting drip down to at least almost all of the annuals that I have in this bed. And last night I come through and got drip on the hydrangeas. This bed's still running off the hose bib for now. and I'll talk a little bit more about the water situation as I get around to the back of the house. The sun patience suffered a little bit this past week, so the foliage looks rough, but you wouldn't know it from the number of blooms it's pushing out. So still got to get a little bit of drip irrigation on a couple of them over there. I just had run out and I had to get some more, and still looking really good. So I had been doing a whole lot of overhead watering still, and I've kind of switched to some drip irrigation mostly. There's still a lot of drip I need to put in, and I've already put in probably close to 400 feet of drip irrigation in this bed. 300 of that is the tubing that has emitters spaced every 18 inches, this brown tubing, and then the rest of it is black irrigation tubing, which is solid and circles this entire perimeter around the sidewalk and down, and covers these trees and stuff that I installed last year. That's kind of been my backbone area. There is a theoretical length that you can go to where drip irrigation is not going to be as effective anymore. I've talked about that on my channel. This is going to be the ultimate test, because you can see how much I've done with drip irrigation since it's on the surface and how much there is left to do. I'm not going to be doing every plant in this bed. I'm focusing mainly on those plants that I know are going to need it, and the places where there are annuals, places where there's like this yarrow right here. I'm not putting drip irrigation on. This is Firefly Peach Sky, and it actually has buds on it. Several of them do. You can see it there. So they're going to be blooming any day now. Here we have sedums, and next to it is catmint, and so those things are really drought tolerant. So I don't think I'm going to put a lot of drip on them this year. I may have to overhead water a little bit if we have a drought this season. But otherwise, they should be pretty good alone, just with the water that is available in the flower beds and rain we get. One thing you may have noticed is I just become completely fed up with the daffodil and tulip foliage, and I cut back almost all of the daffodils in this bed, and there's like a pile of foliage over there I've left to just kind of dry down a little bit so I can dispose of it. And then I removed all of the daffodils that were right here because they were a really big clump that didn't look so great. They were falling over, covering all of this carex that I had planted and the stilbe and the coneflowers. I'm going to replant those daffodils. I took them and put them in the shade, and I'll keep them watered. They'll probably wilt really bad. I'll cut the greenery off of them and replant them into nice groupings throughout this bed. So they'll contribute back to this garden, but won't necessarily be in a huge clump right here at the front and just look kind of ratty after they finish their bloom. So these reminiscent coral roses I showed you in the last video, and they had not started completely blooming out yet, and now they've started to age a bit and don't look as good as they did a few days ago, but that color is incredible. I think you can admit that it's very unusual. It's not quite pink, it isn't quite orange, it is truly like a coral color that I am very much enjoying, and you can see these from the road. That's how bright they are, and I love it. The 𝗣𝗥𝗢𝗘 River is doing really good despite the heat we've had. You can see all of the new growth. These have pushed out. I have overhead watered them. They've not had water for the past couple days though, so you can see there's been a little bit of burning, but look at all this fresh growth here on all of them. So these are gonna bulk up a lot this year, I think, even their first year, and be really gorgeous just in another month or more. And filling out the space really nicely. So one of the next goals is to get drip through here onto these, as a lot of the perennials I planted are things that naturally are just drought tolerant and don't need a whole lot of water. Salvias, a lot here. The Veronicas ever after aren't a super water hungry plant, but they're starting to bloom just a little bit. Those are the ones I planted last year, these 4 from Discount. And then all around it are some I planted from bare root. These classic coral Dianthus are looking really incredible. Look at all of those blooms on these tiny plants. Really, really nice. I didn't get drip quite any further over in this bed, but I'll probably put drip on them just in case they want a little more water, and I've got to put drip on these golden butterfly Marguerite daisies anyway, which are starting to open buds, which will probably be available tomorrow to look at. All right, let's head around to the back and kind of show you some things back there. There's still a lot to clean up here on this side of the barn, but I am going to come through and plant my rose wall this weekend, and then I need to get drip on those roses so they'll do well. I probably need to go to the store and buy some splitter for some irrigation and timers that I have, because I've kind of maxed out my available use of the ones I have with me, so these things can be watered pretty well. And this is real life as to what my shrub bay looks like right now. I have got to get a lot of the stuff in the ground. That's why I'm in such a rush right now. A lot of the things are in areas that I can't really work on right now, but all of the roses back here are looking really good. These are the 𝗩𝗟𝗗𝗘𝗦 that are going to make it into the rose wall. The Ninebarks that I pulled up from where the hydrangea hedge went are looking good in those containers as they are. And then I've got some few perennials. I've got some catmint down here that I reserved for the rose wall as well. I'm going to let those grow on a little more before I plant those. Those will be okay. And a lot of these tiny shrubs down here at the bottom are reserved for around the fence. So I'll take you over there and show you a little development there. As we head this way, you can clearly see where I trenched for irrigation around the backyard. So that will grow up and grass will grow over that and look fine. You won't even know it's here. But I did take lots of pictures, so I'll know those where the irrigation is in the future. I have not got to installing the valves for the irrigation, but I do have water to all of the hoses that I installed. And so I've at least put my beehive system to water like the hydrangea hedge in the back garden. And then when I truly get the irrigation valves in, then that system can take over and I can put the beehive stuff elsewhere or retire it until I need it for special projects somewhere when I'm expanding a new bed or something. I brought in some wood chips before the tractor had to go be serviced and planted some of these big shrubs a couple weeks ago, so they've been settling in. Still need to come through and dig on the back side of the fence. Need to pressure wash the fence, so there's lots to do there. But these are ones that were needing to get in the ground. And so that's something I did very quickly the other day, and they have put on a ton of growth since being put in the ground. You can see just in a couple weeks, all this brand new bright green foliage on this castle wall holly here, and this Ninebark that I am loving the color of. I've typically had summer wine. This is ginger wine, and it's really gorgeous. And it looks like I actually may have had deer browsing damage on this. It snipped off a couple things here. That's another thing. There's been groundhog issues we've had. We've seen a few deer. Overall, they've not bothered a whole lot, and so I'm keeping an eye on those things to see what issues might crop up. I'm still wanting to plant this entire bed behind here, basically 10 foot deep. So I put those roughly 7 foot apart, and then I can interplant with some smaller shrubs in the future. I don't intend to have any perennials necessarily in this bed space. It's all going to be shrubs that I won't necessarily have to cut on. That'll be easy to maintain, and they can grow to their full size without a whole lot of maintenance. Part of that is going to include, I need to come through now, since this lilac stopped blooming. It smells so beautiful when it was blooming. Gorgeous smell. And it has like gotten so big this year compared to last year, but I need to cut it back because it is a rebloomer. I noticed it rebloomed last year. I'm not sure if it's one of the Proven Winners bloomerang varieties, but it's very oddly placed here. And if I'm going to put a 10-foot bed next to this fence, it's going to be not positioned great to get things through. So I'm going to cut it back pretty severely. And then I'm going to attempt to dig it up and transplant it after the tractor gets here. And it'll be on drip irrigation, so it should do pretty well. And I hope it transplants well, so I'm going to plant it along the back of the fence, essentially, so it can enjoy a new, more appropriate placing for it in the future. You may see all the tarps and wonder why I have tarps everywhere. The tarps, there's PEX is what I used for the in-ground irrigation. PEX degrades with sunlight. PVC does as well, but not quite as quickly. So PEX can't be exposed to the sunlight for a very long time. And so I've got tarps on the ground until I can get those covered up with soil and the valves in. So that's something I'm gonna be working on probably a little bit next week when it cools down. The Limelight Prime hydrangea hedge is looking really good. I've had drip on it. You can see it here. It goes to that beehive system off of this since I had this system installed. And even before then, I had drug a hose from behind the barn all the way over here to keep these watered every day. They have two 2-gallon-per-hour emitters on them, and I'm watering them right now every day if it doesn't rain for 45 minutes. So I get a lot of questions about how long to run your drip irrigation. And those aren't questions that I can typically answer really well because it really depends on your soil type, the plant variety, how much rainfall you're getting, how hot it is outside. So you just kind of have to play with it. 45 minutes for two 2-gallon-per-hour emitters is roughly 1.5 times 2, which is 3 gallons of water per shrub over 45 minutes is how much water these are getting. And that might be a little much. It may not be. These are new, and you can see they seem to be really happy, and they're putting on a lot of good growth, no browning or anything. So I'm obviously pare these things back a little bit more as these plants get established. But anytime something is new, particularly hydrangeas, you want to make sure they get enough water. Otherwise, they'll be set back for the season. So just something to keep an eye on. Looks like we're getting, oh, looky here. These are Limelight Primes, and these are tiny little starts to blooms. So it is May 23rd, and these Limelight Primes are already starting to get their blooms. Normally Limelight Primes would not get their, or Limelight, standard Limelight would not start getting blooms until July. So that makes me really excited about this variety. I've had it in my garden in the last garden for a very short period of time, but I've never really paid much attention to how quickly it's blooming. Look at this one. This one looks like it's about to start putting some buds on it as well. So that's really exciting. Keep you updated on that and see how quickly these bloom out. So there we go, May 23rd when first noticed. All of these beds still need edged, and that is something that is going to be last on my to-do list. There's just too much other stuff to do right now. Particularly getting plants in the ground is primarily the most important thing, and drip irrigation. So after all of those things are done, I'll come through and do these beds and clean up the edges and remulch with wood chips. But I got this drip down yesterday because I was afraid that these things would start suffering because they've not really been watered any at all this year by hand. We've only had rainfall that's been watering this bed, and they've actually come along pretty nicely. You can see these Dianthus. I'm not sure that I even watered them after I planted them. I think I just put them in the ground and basically said good luck, and you can see they're blooming really good and coming along nicely. We have a Winky Prime hydrangea right here on the end, which is looking pretty good. It's put on 6 to 8 inches of growth so far this season as a new plant planted last year. And there's not a whole lot left in this bed right here. And what I'm going to be putting in this bed are some Walter's Gardens Proven Winners new perennials for 2025. The Crescent Garden containers, to my surprise, have not needed any more water. I watered them, I think, once after that video. So I shot that video on Saturday or Sunday and watered them the next day. And I've not had to water them since. So the self-watering has actually worked quite well. And the plants, since some of them had been in the shade for a week or so, had to acclimate back to the sun, so they burn a little bit. But otherwise, they're looking really good. So I can technically go put these where they're gonna be around the pool, but I'll probably keep them here for a couple more days just because I'm not quite ready for that. But you can see how much they filled out just in a few days from when I shot the video less than a week ago. I do have this concrete container that I brought from the last house, but I don't have any way to get drip over here yet. So what I'm thinking about doing is finding a black container that will fit the inside of this pot, planting it up and putting it elsewhere and keeping it watered. And then when I'm able to do and pay more attention to the pool area and get drip over here, put the black container inside of this. Something else is coming back from last year too, and it looks like to me petunia foliage almost. And I don't remember, did I have, what I had Supertunia 𝗣𝗟𝗡𝗧𝗦 in here last year. There's never been any other petunias, and I thought they were supposed to be sterile. There's also a saffron finch in here last year, looks like. So I always keep my tags in here. So it'll be interesting if I get these survived and come back here in zone 6. We did get negative Fahrenheit temperatures here this year, and they're also coming up in areas where I did not necessarily have one, so it'll be interesting if they seeded, because I didn't think they were supposed to produce seeds, but I'm going to keep these growing on, and it'll be an interesting development to pay attention to, and we'll be able to see. I'm feeling like this is going to be Supertunia 𝗣𝗟𝗡𝗧𝗦, just based on the color of that bloom there, but this one looks like it might be yellowish, so it could be both, which would be very odd. A few updates on the cut flower garden. I'm not sure what will be made of it this year, trying to learn from this experience and know that I've taken on too much this year, but right now it's just been about keeping things watered. I think I finally dialed in the overhead irrigation, but yesterday I received drip tape to line these areas with to hopefully make these plants a little happier. I've never used drip tape, so that's going to be an experience or a new experience for me. I don't recommend it for garden beds because it's mostly used in straight lines, so it's intended for like row crop usage. So that's why I'm using it in the cut flower garden, because it's cheaper. And if any of these drip heads got clogged from hard water, it would be easy to replace it. So the dahlias are also coming up really nicely. I've not got the cattle panels yet or the T-post installed on those, but now that they're coming up nicely, that's something I might could do this weekend as well. With the long weekend coming up, got the mahogany splendor hibiscus that's doing well. I've put a few of those Senorita Rosalita Cleomes out here, and the roses are also looking really good too. I've noticed a bloom on, not a bloom, a bud on my Poet's Wife rose that is coming along really nicely, and I've not noticed, looks like we might have a bud forming here on this one, which is Coco Loco. So that might be one of the first ones to bloom in the cut flower garden. So thank y'all for joining me on this mid-late May garden walk. There's a lot going on. You can see I'm being pulled in a lot of different directions, trying to take care of a lot of different things at the same time. So I'm hopeful with the weather next week being a little nicer, the plants will get a small break before it gets hot again, and it will allow me to tackle a whole lot more things over the next week. Once I can get water to everything, it's game on, because I can move pretty quickly on other tasks. But this is why I focus on drip irrigation so much, because if you're not giving your plants consistent, regular water, they're not going to perform well. And watering by hand or even moving a sprinkler head takes an enormous amount of time out of activities that you could otherwise be doing in your garden. So we'll see how productive this holiday weekend is. Thank y'all for joining me, and remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.